Hi, Dr. Cubitt.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
I am not bad, not bad. Getting over a little sickness, but I'm pushing through it. Um, Look at everybody knows the drill. They're already saying hello and letting us know where they're coming in from. If
Oh, I
you are
need to
just
turn
now
on the comments.
joining, let us know what state you are joining us from. We have Jennifer from upstate New York. Kyle Marie from Texas, Patty from Kentucky, Cindy
I know
from,
Lori. I think I know Lori.
oh, nice. We have Cindy from the Dominican Republic.
Oh,
Hi.
wow.
Awesome. Kayla from Tennessee, Robin from New Mexico, Terry from Eastern Washington. You guys are from all over. It is so wonderful to have you join us tonight. So as we get started here, I'm excited because we're going to be giving away free product coupons to 3 winners tonight. One will come a little bit later for a survey, but so to get us started, if you guys could go ahead and share this Facebook Live video right now to your Facebook page, make sure it's public so we can see it. One of you who shares this video will be winning some Standlee free product coupons. And we're going to be choosing them at the end of the evening. So be sure to stay with us all the way through. We're also going to be doing a survey again like we did last time. Just helps us know what we're doing well with this, what we should look to improve on. Because after all, we are here for you guys. This is not about Dr. Cubitt. This is not about me. And this is not about Standlee. It's about each and every one of you guys. So we're so happy to have you here. I actually would like to know how many of you that are on tonight actually have listened to the Beyond the Barn podcast by Standlee. Let us know in the comments so we can see if you guys have listened to it before, because Dr. Cubitt and I actually happen to be co-hosts of the Beyond the Barn podcast. We actually just released an episode, not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, about how to prevent and manage laminitis. Okay, we have some people that are saying that they listen. Susan listens to it regularly.
Yay.
Thank you, Susan. That's awesome. Jennifer loves the podcast. Thank you. Laminitis, it's kind of an interesting thing because it's one of those things where you might be thinking that if you have a laminitic horse, and you have to worry about it. But to be honest, if you're not watching things and making sure that your horse is doing okay, you could actually end up your horse could get laminitis. And so prevention is a huge thing when it comes to that. So listen to that episode if you haven't yet. Our next episode will be releasing this coming Tuesday, April 25th. It's episode 58, The Interesting and Curious Life of an Equine Veterinarian You Wouldn't Believe, with Dr. Jerry Bilquist. We are actually releasing this one in time for Saturday is World Veterinary Day, and we're really excited to be able to have Dr. Bilquist on and join us to talk about his incredible life experiences that he has had as an equine vet. And we want to just be able to honor and celebrate our veterinarians with World Veterinary Day. So
I'm going to have to get
excellent.
on and listen to that one. I love listening to all of the veterinarian audiobooks. I've listened to all of All Creatures Great and Small.
Oh,
And
nice.
then there is another book by the guy who took over their practice, and that's great too. But I'm going to have to
Oh,
listen
cool.
to that one.
I'll have to listen to that. I'll have to read that. It was such an interesting interview. I can't tell you. He had some surprising things that he told us about, and I was just like, your life has been so interesting and fascinating. So anyway, stay tuned for that one. It's going to be really interesting. And Patty, I see that you said you wish you would have known because your mare has laminitis. If you
Oh,
haven't
no.
listened yet, go and listen to it. It's episode 57. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts. So check that out. I think it's really helpful. And we've gotten some comments from others saying that they've really enjoyed it. So, and then of those of you that are on right now, how many of you guys have actually been on a Facebook Live with us before? Because we would love to know who's done this, who maybe needs a little bit better introduction from us. Last time I did this, I almost broke our Facebook Live. Do you remember that, Dr. Cubitt? Our comments
Oh,
stopped working.
yes. Yes. I keep looking at how beautiful Katie looks, and I'm so used to doing our podcast when nobody sees my face, and I'm like, I need to step up my outfit game next time.
Oh, all I did is just put on a little Standlee. But
This is what you get after a day of looking after two boys.
nope, never before. Okay, I'm not sure I have. I have yes, yes. Okay, so we have some people that have been on before. Okay, and some that haven't. That's good. So my name is Katie. I'm a co-host of Beyond the Barn podcast. I'm a marketing consultant with Standlee Premium Western Forage. I grew up on a small beef cattle operation in Central Oregon. I attended the University of Idaho and got some ag degrees there, and have kind of wandered around the Northwest a little bit. Ended up here in Southern Idaho with Standlee. And I have my husband and my 3 little girls that we raise with our cows. So,
She's
Dr.
also a
Cubitt, would
very
you
good
introduce
photographer.
yourself?
Yes, I will. Katie is very reserved about her accolades, but she's also a great photographer. I have a funny accent. I'm originally from Australia. I moved here in 2001 to go to graduate school. I went to Virginia Tech and did a master's and PhD. And then I started working for a company called Performance Horse Nutrition. And we consult with some feed companies, one supplement company, and one hay company here in the United States, and then internationally with some other companies as well. And what we do is we help formulate new products. We do teaching, work with veterinarians closely, help with quality control, labeling, you name it, we do it. And since we went through COVID, that opened a whole lot of new things that we got good at doing, like
Added some more to
Facebook
your
Lives.
resume. Yeah, well, you got used to doing a lot of Facebook Lives and webinars, I think, through that whole process
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
think it helps. You know, we're all used to it now, and it does certainly reach a wider audience. Look how many different states are represented tonight. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's really great that this is it's a good way for us to all feel connected, even though we live in different states. So,
yeah.
um, as we get started here, Dr. Cubitt and I would actually really love to know how many of you actually have pasture availability for your horses. I know some situations, or you might be boarding somewhere and maybe they're stalled most of the time. They might just have like some turnout. Let us know in the comments just so we can kind of gauge who is on and kind of to help direct our discussion and conversation tonight with your guys' questions. Okay. Patty's got some acreage. Amber said limited pasture. Pat, no for us. Suzanne, I have one for one of my guys, but not the other. Okay. Linda has pasture. Home pastures. Okay, so we have some with some pasture, some minimal pasture. Okay, so this is good. Good audience. That means this'll really hit home very well tonight. Another question: how many acres per horse do you think one horse needs to be able to fulfill their daily fiber requirements? Just make some guesses in the comments. Any guesses? Don't be shy. It's okay.
Ooh, I think there's a bit of a delay. Look, 1 acre, 3 acres, 2, 3.
Horse. Okay. You seeing these come through, Dr. Cubitt?
I'm seeing it, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. And I have a question I want to ask you, Dr. Cubitt, but I would actually like you to comment on this. Because I think we asked the question, we need to give them the answer. So how many acres do we need?
Yeah, I'm going to say my answer, and then I'll defer to, I can't say your last name, but Kyle. Yeah, it certainly does depend on the state.
And it depends on how much. Yes.
No, so the general rule of thumb is 2 acres per horse, and those 2 acres need to have 75% coverage of plants, not weeds, and it needs to be at least 6 inches tall, and that will allow the horse to get that 2% of body weight in dry matter per day. Now, obviously, in Texas, 2 acres is not going to have 75% coverage. That is 6 inches tall, so maybe it would be more acres. But if all things were equal, it would be 2 acres per horse with those other criteria.
Excellent. And this is something that I think once you talk about it, it's pretty obvious, but you don't always think about it. So, Dr. Cubitt, could you just discuss a horse that would be grazing compared to eating dry hay? How much more grass in their pasture would they have to consume to kind of equal out to the amount of dry hay or forage that they're eating?
And so in the spring and the fall, especially when the grass is really wet and full of moisture content, that grass is actually 80% moisture and 20% dry matter. So, some work done by researchers at North Carolina State back in 2014, and they actually controlled pasture time and they calculated how much horses would consume. And so if your horse is out 24 hours and under those, 2 acres per horse with the kind of guidelines that I outlined, then for 24 hours, they're going to probably consume about 0.77 pounds per hour of dry matter. And that's going to be about 18.5 pounds in a day. Now, in the spring, remember, you can't, like, I see a lot of people, my horse is out half a day, couple of hours. That we're going to get, what did they say, 3 hours, and we got about 6 pounds of dry matter intake. So you can see that when they're out for a short period of time, they will actually consume a lot more. Another study in ponies looked at, and ponies they are sneaky and they learn really quickly. So when your horses are out all of the time, they realize, okay, I'm just going to constantly graze and everything's fine. And so their rate of intake is slower. But the less time you put them out, the more they're going to consume in the time that they're out. So 24 hours, the horse is going to consume 0.77 pounds per hour. 3 hours a day, they're going to consume 2.2 pounds per hour. Those ponies realized what they had short amounts of time that they were out versus long, and then grazing muzzle versus no grazing muzzle. And without the grazing muzzle, the ponies were consuming 5% of their body weight within like 3 or 4 hours. It was absolutely ridiculous. So, I think I totally went off track to what you were asking, but
No,
it
I
is
think that's
when
great
they're
information.
eating dry hay, it's 95% dry matter. So it's much quicker and easier for them to fulfill those dry matter requirements. But the key word being it's quicker. They will consume it a lot quicker. So when we think about, we're constantly trying to simulate grazing behavior, which is constantly nibbling and constantly consuming a small amount. So makes it challenging.
Yeah, it is. If you haven't started yet, please start submitting your questions and we will get to them all the best that we can. If you notice that we maybe skipped yours, please go ahead and submit it again, because as we go through, and especially as we're asking you questions and things like that, the comments kind of get pushed through and everything. So don't be afraid to go ahead and throw your question in again to make sure that we hit on it. To get us started, I did happen to catch Reb right off the bat actually said, I'm going to show this up here so you can see it. Howdy from Illinois. I guess that's Illinois, right? I want to know how to get my fat horse transitioned from hay to pasture. How fast and how much do I need to start with? Thanks in advance.
And for any transition, if we are actually going to allow them to eat the spring grass, we need to do it slowly, because switching from, most people in the wintertime don't have access to green grass, so their horses are eating hay, which is dry, full dry matter. So switching from hay to spring grass is a rapid feeding change. And we all know we don't make grain changes quickly, and we certainly should not make that hay to spring grass change quickly either. transition them slowly. Maybe you do, or it's always early in the morning, and that's another conversation we can have, but early in the morning, and maybe 15 to 30 minutes a day for a couple of days, and then we can slowly increase it so that maybe we're up to 3 to 4 hours. Now, you say your horse is fat, so I would put a grazing muzzle on the horse because we want to decrease his intake, but we also want him to exercise. So, kind of got a double-edged sword. And that is only if we know that if he has a cresty neck, I would be very concerned about putting him out at spring grass because, as Katie mentioned earlier, the spring grass can actually trigger. It can be kind of the stone in the pool that causes a ripple effect, which ends up in laminitis. So be careful and make sure that your fat horse actually can go out to pasture. And if he couldn't go out to pasture, then I always recommend, if possible, making a sacrifice area, or even if you have a riding arena, that you turn that into their kind of temporary turnout paddock. So you can put hay in there, they can move, they can walk around, and they're not stuck in a 12-by-12 stall. So,
Yes. And along these same lines, Jamie actually has a comment about that her pony actually does wear a grazing muzzle when he's out, and she's trying to get his weight down. Do you have any tips? Any
well, a
additional
grazing
tips
muzzle
you could give her?
can decrease intake anywhere from 30 to 80%. So that's the first start. Exercise, you can't. There's only so much you can starve a horse. You can't take away all the food. That's awful, and it's going to just cause a lot of other problems like gastric ulcers and colic. So we don't want to get to that point where we're reducing their intake so much that it's really starving them. That's awful. So what else can you do? Exercise, exercise, exercise. And sometimes spring grass has too many calories in it. It's just too high in sugars for those fat horses. And so using a lower carbohydrate hay that's lower in calories and protein may be a better option.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jennifer has a question. Can you meet horses' nutritional needs with a ration balancer and hay pellets for added calories?
100% yes. I can meet the needs of a broodmare in early gestation and early lactation, which there's no other higher requirements for a horse. I can meet the needs of a racehorse, of a dressage horse, a barrel racing horse. Now, I won't guarantee you that the racehorse will race fast, but yes, you can use a ration balancer, and you can use varying levels, varying nutritional value hays. Like for the broodmare, I'm going to use alfalfa. For the racehorse, I would use alfalfa. For a pleasure horse, I might use something like Timothy, Orchard. For a fat horse or a horse with metabolic issues, then I might be using something like Teff. Again, though, eating hay pellets or hay cubes or chopped hay, they will consume that a whole lot quicker. So it makes management a lot more difficult when we're trying to simulate grazing behavior.
And actually, I'm going to throw this up because this is from the initial question where we were talking about the fat pony. She has a muzzle and it keeps the hole small. And the horse does have a crest neck.
Yeah, if she has a cresty neck, I would be getting your veterinarian to run some blood work on her, look at her glucose and insulin levels before she may be, in human terms, pre-diabetic. She may have elevated glucose and insulin, which might indicate that she is insulin resistant, and then it wouldn't be great to turn her out on spring grass at all. So, because that then could lead to laminitis. So before I started turning her out, I would certainly get your veterinarian to run some blood work on her.
Mm-hmm. And we had somebody ask about it. Yes, if you have questions, please just go ahead and put those in the comments below, and we'll do our best to get to those questions as we can. So keep your questions coming. Let's see. Natalie has a little bit of a long one, but it's good because she's giving us detail.
Okay.
I have a 32-year-old hardkeeper thoroughbred who gets morning and late afternoon alfalfa. She's in a paddock with other horses. What else can I give her to maintain her weight? I give her senior pellets, electrolytes, mineral oil, camelina oil, and bee
Mm-hmm.
pulp. What can I add to her diet to help her maintain her weight?
I would say that the camelina oil, because the mineral oil is not digestible, so that's not adding any calories. But the camelina oil is the exact same calorie content as every other oil, canola oil, soy oil, corn oil. They all have the exact same calorie content. And I don't know how much of that you're feeding her, but general rule of thumb is you can feed about 2 measuring cups a day spread over multiple meals to a horse without any digestive issues, and that is going to, I mean, fat is the safest way to put calories on a horse, especially an older horse that probably doesn't want to eat a lot. It doesn't add any volume or bulk to the diet. So looking at what you're already feeding, that's what stands out to me, the oil.
32 years old.
Yeah, you're
She's
doing a
still
great
trucking.
job.
That's awesome, Natalie. Yeah, you must be taking some good care of her. So, okay, let's see. Suzanne, I have a Cushing's horse. I still let him graze for a couple of hours right now with a grazing muzzle and monitor the heat in his feet. Once the grass is dry in the summer, I let him graze without the muzzle. How do you feel about this?
That's a good idea. Every year the horses are different. And as a natural function of aging, insulin sensitivity decreases, whether you've got Cushing's or insulin resistance or not. It just decreases. So every year you have this horse, it's going to get worse. So maybe this year and last year, it's fine for them to be out with a grazing muzzle in the spring. You might find as the horse gets older that they just can't handle that spring grass, or maybe you have to have them out a little less. But absolutely, in the dry summer grass and in the winter when there's, snow and grass out there, absolutely, let them graze without a muzzle. That's fine.
Excellent. Pat says we feed Bermuda hay and a ration balancer. Is the ration balancer really necessary?
100% yes. And it wouldn't matter if you were feeding the best hay on the planet. I guarantee you, all forages are deficient in selenium, copper, and zinc. So, Bermuda hay may or may not give, it depends on what the horse is doing. It may give them plenty of protein and energy, but definitely copper, zinc, and selenium are going to be deficient. So, a ration balancer is necessary. Is your horse going to die if you don't feed the ration balancer? No. But if you want optimal, ideal health, I would do the ration balancer.
Good.
Ration balancers in general are also the cheapest feed to feed because you feed 1 pound a day. Some people get a bit of sticker shock when they look at the price of the bag, but when you work it out to cost per serving, they're usually really inexpensive, anywhere from 50 to 70 cents a day.
Excellent. Okay, Jennifer says, is it better to create a pasture of paradise track system versus using a grazing muzzle?
So I think what you're talking about, people use all different kinds of terms, is kind of that forced exercise, I think, where you're, making them walk all around the field, hay in one area, water in another, salt block in another, maybe gate in another, I think is what you're talking about, versus a grazing muzzle. And correct me, Jennifer, if I'm not. I know that the research shows that we can decrease dry matter intake by 30 to 80% with a grazing muzzle. I'm not sure on the pasture track system, the research. I'm just going to do a bit of Googling.
Actually, while you're looking that up, Dr. Cubitt, I did forget to put in our little disclaimer earlier on. Even though, we're having a chat and you guys are asking questions, just remember that everybody's horse, everybody's situation, it's all different. So be sure to take that into account when you receive advice. If you have very specific questions about your situation that you would like to reach out to us later about and have Dr. Cubitt talk you through it, just let us know, and we'd be happy to do that. So,
okay, so I am.
Jennifer says that's correct, Dr. Cubitt. She
Yes,
confirmed.
I'm looking at this cool picture of this kind of long alleyway, and it's just really causing forced exercise. So If I had a fat horse, I'd do both if I could. We need all the help we can get, but
Excellent. Okay. Lacey says, best time to let them on spring grass. I've heard only early morning, then I've heard midday, and also early evening. Which is it?
I would say that this is the research that I did at Virginia Tech with another associate called Dr. Bridget McIntosh, and it's only early in the morning. Midday and early evening, wrong. And the reason is when, so the sun shines, we'll go back to high school biochemistry for a second. The sun shines during the day and causes, and then we have this chemical reaction called photosynthesis, which causes the leaves to get green and also for the plant to store energy. And in grasses, cool season grasses like timothy or orchard grass or fescue, then that's going to be sugar, right? And then at night, when the sun goes down, the plant no longer is storing energy because the sun's not out, so we're not having that photosynthesis occurring. And if the air temperature is not too cold, if the soil temperature is not too cold, if there's enough moisture in the soil, if there's enough fertility in the soil, then the plant will grow. And it will grow, grow, grow. And what happens when you grow is you use energy. So first thing in the morning, those grasses are the lowest that they will be in sugars. Now, the caveat to that is, what if at night the ideal conditions were not met? What if it was a frosty night and the plants couldn't grow? Then first thing in the morning, the grass is still going to be high in sugar. So if all the conditions are right, first thing in the morning is perfect.
Excellent. That's a really very good question, Lacey. Thank you for bringing that up. Rita, should hay pellets have water added?
Oh, Rita, this is a great question, and I'm sure everybody has personal opinions, but here's what I would say. Pellets in general, hay pellets, pellets of that you're feeding, the concentrate feed. If your horse is naive, not used to eating pellets, then you should do anything you can to slow down the intake of those pellets. If your horse doesn't have good teeth, slow down the intake of those pellets. One of the ways that we slow down the intake of those pellets is to wet them and soak them. Now, with older horses that have really bad teeth, it's not just a matter of wetting them, it's a matter of making a soup or a gruel, because they cannot grind those pellets down and masticate them and mix enough saliva into them so that that saliva will then lubricate the throat so that they don't choke. If your horse has ever had an incident of choke before, then yeah, I would wet/soak, make a gruel soup out of all pellets. That doesn't mean that every single horse on the earth needs to have their pellets soaked. But when in doubt, I say soak.
Right. Okay, and Christina says, can I use feed something to offset spring grass?
I think you're talking about supplements that might help these metabolic horses. You got to be careful. If you have a horse with insulin resistance, then there's a supplement called chromium. Well, that's not really a supplement. It is a nutrient or a mineral in the diet. And there's a particular chromium called chromium propionate. The brand name is Chemtrace Chromium. And yes, that will help with upregulating insulin receptors so that they can clear that glucose. It certainly doesn't mean that you can take no responsibility and then let your horse out to spring grass if they're fat and crusty necked. So yes, there are supplements that you can feed to help with insulin dysregulation, but I still would be very leery about putting my sick horse out to pasture even if they had that supplement.
Right. And next question we have is from Kayla. And she says, is a forage only diet realistic for performance horses like barrel horses, or do they need the extra calories from other feeds?
I would say that nutritionally, I can meet a horse's protein, energy, calcium, copper, zinc. I can meet all of their mineral and nutrient requirements using making a forage only diet, a forage and a ration balance, or I should say, forage only. No, you're never going to do it. But for a horse that needs to do exercise at speed, they need sugar. They need to turn that sugar into glucose to be used in the muscle and stored as glycogen to be used later on for those fast twitch muscle fibers, the ones that go quickly. So I think that most horses that need to do exercise at speed will need to eat some sugar and starch from another source, be it adding oats, be it adding a commercial concentrate that is higher in those sugars and starches. It's not necessarily about the calories, it's about the source of those calories. We know that fat is more calm, slow energy. Fibers, calm, slow energy. So,
Excellent.
Katie,
And
I see a question here from Cindy. How fast after sunset does the sugar leave? And that really kind of comes
oh,
after the question we just did. So I wanted to answer that one and
oh,
say,
this one. Yes.
Cindy,
Is this the one?
Yep. 5 p.m. in the afternoon is what we found to be here in Virginia peak sugar accumulation. And if you're going to turn it out at night, we usually say after 10 p.m., sorry, after 10 p.m. and bring them back in before 10 a.m. in the morning.
Excellent. Very good. And on that, to kind of follow up on that barrel racing question, we did, Dr. Cubitt, remember we just did that episode number 56, how to improve your horse's diet, including 4 example horse diets that you balanced.
Oh,
We
they
did a
all
barrel
run
racing
together.
one.
I can't remember.
Yep. It was one we just did not that long ago. If you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out. Again, everybody's horse, everybody's situation's different, but you might find some valuable information in that episode that you will enjoy. So let's see. Okay, Robin says we are replanting our pastures with native grasses. How tall do we wait? How much coverage do we need before putting the horses on to keep the pastures and the horses healthy?
You're not going to love my answer because native grasses, and this is why we ended up going with the types of grasses we have now. So native, or a lot of our warm season grasses, we call them bunching. And so when the horse pulls on it, they rip the whole plant out. And then you have things like fescue and orchard grass, and Timothy, they're a lot more robust and they spread out. And so when the horse pulls it, it doesn't pull the whole plant out and it continues to grow. They withstand heavy traffic. But in order to do that, they store a lot of energy, right? Strong things use a lot of energy. This grass that is stronger uses a lot of energy. Our native or warm season grasses do not store, warm season grasses don't store sugar per se, they store starch and they don't store much of it. And the native grasses are bunching. So you are going to want to be very, very careful about overgrazing. And I know it's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears replanting those pastures. So I would wait longer than you think to actually put the horses out there. I would make sure you've got a solid 75% coverage and it's at least 6 inches tall before you put the horses out there to graze it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
The other, for growing plants, the other rule of thumb is what is above is below. So the shorter the grass above, the shorter the roots below. And if you live in an area that is drier or it suffers drought conditions, then you really don't want to allow those roots to come up too high. You want to keep them lower down in the ground. Now that's a benefit to those native grasses as they tend to have long roots, but they are still what we call bunching. So they're easier to pull out, but the roots will go down deeper so that they tap into that moisture.
Yeah, you don't want the horses to pull the whole plant out. So,
No.
okay, Patty says, could you please explain the ration balancer? I really don't know anything about that.
That's good because a couple of people actually wrote that same thing. And I'll add in Rita's question: is a ration balancer better than a vitamin supplement? So we'll go through it all. So, what is a ration balancer? Literally, they balance the ration. So, a lot of people would feed oats and hay, but they're not getting all the vitamins and minerals. So, a ration balancer, it is like a vitamin and mineral supplement. That's really all it is. But it's usually a 1 pound a day feeding rate, and it's also got some good quality protein. It's pelleted so that there's no sifting. It's uniformly distributed. Maybe there's some probiotics or prebiotics added in. But the feeding rate is low and it's very concentrated with those vitamins and minerals. So some people, as I said, might like to do oats. Well, they can balance the ration with the ration balancer. If you're just doing hay or grass, you can balance their diet with the ration balancer. Is it better than your bucket supplements, the vitamin and mineral supplements? I think it's a management thing. If you are just feeding forage, I don't know how you would feed just a granular kind of 2 ounce a day vitamin and mineral supplement, because I don't know how you're going to give it to them. The ration balancer, being a 1 pound a day pellet, is like you're feeding them feed, so it's much easier to provide that to them. But then, if you are feeding oats and hay, then you could certainly put your vitamin and mineral supplement on top of that, something like the horse guard, but it's not going to have extra protein in it. It's not going to have a lot of your macronutrients in high quantities, because you just can't fit that into 1 or 2 ounces. But in a ration balancer, you've just got a lot more room to play with. So there's a lot more room to add ingredients in higher quantities.
And I happen to see this. What is the best way to determine the appropriate ration balancer for your area without spending a ton of money?
Okay, across the board, they're all pretty similar. High and most people will look at them and say, "Oh, it's really high in protein." It's not high in protein. When you work out how much you're actually feeding, a percentage of, 25% of 1 pound is only 4 ounces. So the West Coast, there are some brands that have ration balances that are either an A or G formula. I know one particular company, LMF Feeds, has an A and a G formula, and how you determine which one you should feed is if you're feeding 50% or more of your horse's hay is coming from alfalfa, then you would feed the super supplement A, the ration balancer A. And if you're feeding primarily grass, then you'd feed the ration balancer G. And if you look at the formulations, it accounts for added calcium in alfalfa and added protein in alfalfa. So
Excellent. Interesting. Okay, Susan says, what is the benchmark for when spring grass becomes summer grass? Spring started very early here and we had early growth, but recent lack of rain has set grass growth back a bit. Is the grass less sugary when it is growing regularly and vigorously? Does the grass need to hit a certain height to be safer to eat?
So yes, when grass is growing rapidly, it's utilizing that sugar, and so it is lower in carbs. I'm here in Virginia, and we also had early spring growth, but now we haven't had any rain, and so it's kind of stalled a little bit. And when it's got drought like this, it's funny that I say drought after 2 weeks of no rain, when I grew up in Australia where it was like 15 years of no rain was a drought. But anyway, so we've had no rain for 2 weeks, and the grasses has stalled a little bit, and I would guarantee you that this grass not growing actively is still accumulating a lot of sugar. Now, when does it become summer grass? That's kind of hard to determine, and it depends on the area you're in. You can see that in the summer we have kind of a slump in growth rate. And so based on what I just said, you would think, oh, summer grass is really high in sugars and starches, but it's actually not. it just kind of goes dormant a little in the summertime, and especially those cool season grasses. In the spring and the fall, they're accumulating more sugar and growing.
Okay. Bonnie says my gelding has a leptin imbalance. He's out for about 6 hours per day in South Florida. Inside, he's getting a slow feed hay net, Timothy or Teff pellets, and multivitamin. What more can I do for him?
Nothing. I mean, it sounds like you're doing a great job now. Those, based on what you've written here, that sounds like what he needs. Exercise can help with hormone imbalance, if you're able to exercise him.
Okay. Amber says, I have a 23-year-old mare who is a hard keeper. She eats Nutrina Pro 4 Senior, and we were giving her a Standlee alfalfa pellets soaked, and my vet said they are dangerous for senior horses and to feed Teff pellets. Can you explain to me why this is? She has no metabolic issues and is always on the thinner side.
Okay, so one thing that is a bit of a myth, and I will never call it a wives' tale because women don't come up with this crazy stuff, but it's a myth that alfalfa is high in sugars, right? So if your vet is concerned about the sugar content in the alfalfa, then that's a non-starter because it's actually really low in sugars and starches. If your senior horse isn't drinking a lot or has some kind of kidney loss of kidney function, then that might be why your vet says don't feed alfalfa. But I certainly would not say across the board alfalfa is dangerous for senior horses. Absolutely not. But again, with more specifics about your particular horse, we might get to the root of those statements.
Right. And maybe specifically, there's a reason that the vet is,
yes. I'm
leaning
sure
away from it. There could be a reason there that we're
mm-hmm.
missing. Yes. So, Amber, you could also feel free to reach out to us one-on-one too, and we could talk more about that for sure. So, okay, let's see. Whoop, whoop. Okay, Christina says I have a measuring scoop with weight marks, 1/4, half pound, etc. Or should I weigh my Timothy pellets?
I think that most of these measuring scoops that you'll get from a feed company mainly weigh pellets, and it's probably pretty accurate. But if you wanted to, for fun, take out your kitchen scale and just give it away, then you'd know for sure.
Excellent. Okay. I think we're going to fit in one more question for this evening. We've already kind of hit our 45-minute mark, but Amber says, can you please...
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, do we collect can we see all the questions after the Facebook Live is over?
Yes, I think we still have access to the questions. Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering whether we could answer them on our Facebook page, our private group.
Oh,
any that
we actually could. We're probably due to do a video in there, and we could probably do something like that.
Whether we do videos or we write them answers.
Right, yeah.
So
good call.
If you're not a member.
So for those of you, actually, let's do this. If you are not a part of our Facebook group, which is The Life We Live, Ride, and Love, and we're going to link that in the comments. I think we might have linked it already. Go ahead and join our Facebook group so you can have some of this, I would say more one-on-one time. It's just a smaller group, and we do more interactive type of things like this in there. And we can answer more questions too. So join the group if you haven't yet, and ask the question. Let us know. Maybe we'll do a call out, Dr. Cubitt, about that, because I would love to have some people ask some of their questions in there if we missed it tonight.
Because I feel like tonight we've had so many questions, and I hate to not be able to get to them all because I appreciate them getting on.
Right. Right, absolutely. So yes, please join our group and let's get that going because I think that would be fantastic. Okay, so as we wrap the questions up for this evening, and don't forget, we're going to be doing a giveaway of some free product coupons here in just a few minutes. So Amber says, can you please help me understand why my mare that has EMS has sore muscles and TMJ pain? She has a 7-year-old mare. The feed she is on is AM 1 pad of teff grass hay, lunch 1 pad of teff grass hay, teff grass pellets, soaked beet pulp, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and then PM 1 pad of teff hay and teff grass pellets. If I allow her to graze or alfalfa, she ends up in a lot of pain.
Okay, so the one thing that I am seeing missing from this, it sounds like she's getting plenty of forage. If I'm making the assumption that it's not just like, a pound makes a pad.
Right.
It's why I like to work in weight measurements versus our kind of generalized measurements. But if we assume she's getting 1.5 to 2% of her body weight per day in the teff grass varieties, the hay or the pellets and the beet pulp, the one thing she's missing is a vitamin and mineral supplement, so a ration balancer. And if she is having pain, then I would 100% add natural vitamin E to her diet. Natural vitamin E comes from fresh green grass. The majority of our horses either cannot eat fresh green grass or do not eat fresh green grass because of availability. So I would add natural vitamin E to her diet. I'd probably 6,000 to 8,000 IU's a day, and I would add a ration balancer. Those soreness descriptors that you're describing, they could just be mild nutritional imbalance. Muscle soreness is one of those that is classically associated with kind of an imbalance in nutrients.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being on with us tonight. It's been so wonderful. This conversation, so many good questions. I'm really glad that we picked a topic for this Facebook Live because I feel like we were really just kind of consistently hitting on just some great information for this time of year that's very relevant. So one thing that I would like to point out to you guys before we do announce our winners of the free product coupons, we have some really cool things coming down the pipeline here within the next couple of months for Standlee customers, and just exciting things happening. And we want to be able to share that with you. And so if you haven't yet, we would really love to have you sign up for our e-newsletter list. And I'm going to show you our website right now so you can see what it looks like. This is our homepage. So if you haven't visited our page before, go ahead and jump over there, check it out. If you scroll down to this section right here, subscribe to the Standlee Premium Products emails. We really try to send you guys things that are helpful and informational and try not to spam you with all the emails that you get in your inbox all the time. But you put in your email address and it'll put you on our primary list, and then you can actually select your interests. So obviously you guys are all horse owners, so there's the equine one, but if you own other livestock, if you own poultry, small animals or anything like that, and it would be ridiculous for me to not mention there is a spot that you can sign up for our Beyond the Barn podcast email list here as well. So please go ahead and subscribe because you guys on this email list are going to be the first to know when all of this stuff is happening. And so we would love to be able to have you guys with us as we do that. And then also, if you haven't subscribed to our Beyond the Barn podcast, please do that. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Go check out some of the episodes. We have a lot of great information on there. I feel like that's kind of we have a lot of great stuff on the website as resources, but right now also, you can listen while you're mucking stalls. You can listen while you're driving. If you board your horse, 30 minutes away, you can listen while you're driving. We're not asking you to take out any other time in your day. You can just do that while you're doing something else and learn something that will probably hopefully be beneficial for you. So, and last couple of things. This is, we would love for you to join our Facebook group like we mentioned. We'll get in there and kind of do a call out for some questions we didn't get answered. please join us in there. And then last request that I have is if you could, I know we did this on the last one, and if you filled it out before, please fill it out again because some things could have changed for you. But please fill out this survey. We will be selecting a winner from one person who does fill out this survey a week from now. So fill that out. Let us know how we did. Let us know if you would like to see something different. If you have topic ideas, anything like that, the more information you give us, the better it helps us do our job for you. And our two winners for this evening, and if you would please reach out to me at podcast@standlee.com. But our two winners for this evening, Heidi Hampton Young is our winner for sharing our Facebook Live video. So Heidi, thank you so much for doing that. And then our second winner for tonight specifically is Cindy Bartko. Thank you, Cindy, for being on and asking questions. And please email me at podcast@standlee.com. Again, a third winner will be chosen.
Can you put up the name of the Facebook group on the bottom there?
Yes, it's right. There we go.
There we go.
So thank you again, all of you, for being on and for your wonderful questions. It's been so fantastic. Please fill out that survey. We'll link that in the comments so you won't miss that. And we will be reaching out to the person who wins the survey a week from now. So, okay, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. It was great to have you with us. Bye, Dr. Cubitt.